Okay, I think we're set. Thank you so much for coming to see me and Patrick, and for caring about this incredible issue that 8 years ago when I got involved in this movement through my friendship with independent scientist Clifford Carnicom, I had no idea how manifold this really is. So now I have begun the third and final book in my series on synthetic biology, because all of this is heading toward transhumanism and our biology. So today, what I will do is show you the knowledge I have gained thus far. And it changes all the time, because I'm working as much as possible on this to more deeply understand the science so that I can share it with people, because we're living in a technological age. We have to understand what that means. That means that if we don't, to some degree, attempt to understand the technology, forget the PhDs, forget the college degree. This is all breaking news. And it's breaking news for many scientists. I have about a half dozen scientists, PhDs, who are writing me all the time, and I send them whatever material I have. So don't despair. I feel stronger now than when I started, when I didn't know anything. I find that this strengthens me, because I'm a human being and I want a future for human beings. I'm not interested in cyborg human beings. I want people to have their own choice of how they want to conduct their lives. And in order to do that, I have to get up on the knowledge curve here. I can't just be satisfied with outrage. I can't be satisfied with fear, with ignoring it because it brings me down. I don't really care about that. As Patrick was saying, I'm a warrior, and I fight for the truth. And that's what I am working so hard to try to show people how this knowledge works. You can know, you can understand, and that consciousness will save you and your descendants if you share it and you represent it as an example. This is what I bring to the table. There are so many amazing people in this movement. I can't begin to tell you how thrilled I am to be part of it, because it's a horizontal democratic movement. There is no hierarchy in this. We have no leaders. We have no degrees that we can pass out. This is entirely a grassroots effort by people who are spending all their time on this and working hard to share with other activists like myself. So with that said, I will now read my desideratum. I have a desideratum. I didn't know it was that until someone told me that. I think, Patrick, you've plugged my glasses.
No, that's going into the camera.
All right, so here we go. I'll read that first. Let's go here to the great Nikola Tesla. I wanted to illuminate the whole Earth. There is enough electricity to become a second sun. Light would appear around the equator as a ring around Saturn. And as I show on the book cover, that is exactly what is happening now. A ring is being formed around our equator of conductive metals. Now here we are in our wonderful solar system, and we're departing from the heliocentric model in a sense because we're really rotating through the universe. awaiting our ability to piece it all together and interpret what is being hidden from we the people. Our school conditioning was to keep issues compartmentalized and separate from each other. Geoengineering, GMOs, genetics, Wi-Fi, 5G, Morgellons, transhumanism, vaccinations, electromagnetic targeting of individuals and populations, mind control, etc. When the truth is, they are all connected by a common globalist intent. Just as CERN, ionospheric heaters, fracking wells, and wind turbines are all calibrated to work together for space fence control. The issues confronting us are separate battles in a vast, ongoing spiritual war for the future of humanity and definition of life itself. Extreme weather, water quality, immune system degeneration, creature extinctions, acid oceans, alkalinized soil, all is occurring in tandem with the moral degeneration of society, death of the middle class dream, rise of Agenda 2030 and its artificial intelligence, optogenetics, and neuroscience. All are scenes grown large and wireless from the elite Luciferian dream known yesterday as internationalism and today as globalism. The Earth and its atmosphere are being geoengineered, and it is not just about weather, wireless communication, drones, and directed energy weapons. It is about aiding in the breakdown of the biosphere, so all of life can be genetically altered and controlled. Hopefully, a contextualized bigger picture will help you decide on your particular battle strategy. Once we are no longer fragmented and blinded by fear, we can examine the battle space drawn up by those who despise the long and slow evolution of human free will and seek instead to electromagnetically imprison us in a hive mind. May we draw courage from each other and our ability to see and share what we see. In his 2012 book, Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, Joseph P. Farrell quotes General of the Army Douglas MacArthur in his farewell speech, Duty, Honor, Country, at West Point, May 12, 1962. General MacArthur definitely was privy to the big picture, and I quote, "We deal now not with things of this world alone, but with the illimitable distances and as yet unfathomed mysteries of the universe. We are reaching out for a new and boundless frontier. We speak in strange terms of harnessing cosmic energy, of making winds and tides work for us, of creating unheard of synthetic materials to supplement or even replace our old standard basics, to purify seawater for our drink, of mining ocean floors for new fields of wealth and food, of disease preventatives to expand life into the hundreds of years, of controlling the weather for a more equitable distribution of heat and cold, of rain and shine, of spaceships to the moon, of the primary target in war no longer limited to the armed forces of an enemy, but instead to include his civil populations, of ultimate conflict between a united human race and the sinister forces of some other planetary galaxy, of such dreams and fantasies as to make life the most exciting of all times." End of quote. The most exciting of all times to General MacArthur in 1962 may prove now to be the most dangerous of all times. General MacArthur was not waxing eloquent. He was already looking through the lens of the military doctrine of full-spectrum dominance. Essential to a space age, more about Nikola Tesla's and James Clerk Maxwell's ideas than those of Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. A space age not of the law of conservation of energy, but of torsion fields, rotating plasmas, transducing zero-point energy, manipulation of the local fabric of space-time, longitudinal scalar waves, and interferometry weapons, such as we saw in 9/11 without knowing what we were watching. Warfare is now asymmetrical, and physics is now nonlinear. In near-Earth orbit and space, we have orbiting and geostationary satellites, armed to the teeth with surveillance and directed energy weapons in the name of weather detection and media connectivity. Sounding rockets spewing dusty plasma, smart dust and sensors. Sundry experiments in space, on the moon, and on the sun. All are directed by and run through quantum computers engaged in their own artificial intelligence evolution counter to ours. That we live in the midst of the sentient world simulation, the SWS, quietly built around us in the name of our comfort and convenience and communication, has escaped most of us, given the busyness of our lives. This ignorance must be corrected, as any soldier or general on the battlefield knows. It is also essential to a meaningful life to educate oneself about where and when one lives, especially when all of life, including our bodies and brains, is so vulnerable to the resonance that is under assault from wireless frequencies capable of being intentionally pulsed to achieve psychological and physical effects. Our planet's Schumann resonance of 7.83 Hertz is being changed. Could this be about the singularity or transhumanist future that globally leads like Ray Kurzweil and Google's Singularity University are herding us toward, with RFIDs and sensors in products and people, remote neural monitoring, brain-computer interface, and humanoid robots deemed to be citizens of nations? Yes, this is exactly our condition. And I mean, they should have announced it to us, but would we have heard it? Would we have heard it? I think they've announced it to us in a myriad of ways, but we just didn't know what we were hearing because the context is lacking. And that's what I'm struggling to provide. Imperfectly, absolutely, because I too, like you, am still learning my condition, our condition. But I now know that we really have to have all hands on deck. We cannot hide anymore. We must come forward as a people to protect the humanity of the generations still coming. So let's just go, we'll go as long as I can. We'll see. I've got a lot of slides, so we might not get to the end, but I apologize for the speed at which I'm going to go. If you want more detail and to digest and spend time, please buy a book. Hey, I'm not getting rich. Someone accused me of, oh, you're just hawking books so you can get rich. Are you kidding? Publishers own all the money. I make 7.5% on every book. That's it. That's the publishing world now, especially in small press, to give them credit, Farrell House credit. Small press business is tough. Okay, all right, so here we go. Let's just remember where, Patrick, is this it? Is this the, yes, all right. I don't know if I know that. Okay, so here we are, right? Here we are in the troposphere. We're down here, teeny weeny us. Then we have the stratosphere. Most of our rocket launches, that will play into what I'm going to bring up, they occur in the stratosphere, the sounding rockets. And then we have the mesosphere, and finally we come to the ionosphere, way up there, and then way above it, bubbling around 22,000 miles above, is our magnetosphere. Okay, this is where we live. And these are the things that this science I talk about has so much power over. Okay. Here's the magnetosphere. I love this picture because all of these little hairy-looking energy bits, the magnetic lines of force, coming out of the magnetosphere, those are all what are called Birkeland currents. And Birkeland currents is what is very interesting to our scientists today who are pursuing plasma physics. Okay. This is the Earth's geomagnetic field, and it is not arbitrary. This is from the work of Bruce Cathy. I'm sure some of you have read him. A great New Zealander who's now dead. I miss him. He, through some incredible intelligence and his knowledge of harmonics mathematics, produced a geomagnetic map that goes along with what you've heard are called ley lines, right? This is it. This is the map. And you can actually go and see it at this site, worldgrid.net, if you're interested in purchasing the software. This is the 1990 revolution in military affairs abandoned big armies and missile defense in favor of surgical strike teams, wireless C4 operations. C4 stands for command, control, communications, and cyber warfare. Laser, maser, and particle beam weapons, and dual-use technologies that my whole talk is about today. That serve both as weapons and as non-combatant or civilian convenience items that make profits for giant military contractor corporations. So this is pretty simple graphic, right? It could be much more complex, but you get the idea. You have things going on in the air and in the near-Earth orbit atmosphere, up there, stratosphere. Then you have things going on in the sea, where we have all the whale die-offs and that sort of thing. A lot of military activities going on in the seas. And then you have these radar installations, all of these, which are very important, much for what I'm talking about today. UAVs, etc. So this is full spectrum dominance. Land, air, sea, atmosphere, and above Earth. This is from the famous 1996 document, Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. And you'll notice that the military always uses future dates, never the present, but this is already here. All of our weather is being engineered. And so this, you can see here all these terms: aerospace delivery vehicles, artificial ionospheric mirrors, chemicals, carbon black dust. It's all here. Directed energy, global weather network, smart clouds. All those clouds up there are not really the old clouds at all. They're not moisture-laden clouds. They're actually pretty dry clouds. Sensors are nanoscale. Virtual weather force. Anyway, it's all here. And this would have been one of their maps of where they were going. And this was, again, in 1996. And they were already on their way, because in 1996, that was a year after Nick Begich's book, Angels Don't Play This Harp, came out. And it was also when Clifford Carnicum was watching the skies over New Mexico and had already determined that those clouds were not natural clouds anymore. And he was pulling debris out of his HEPA filters and collecting precipitation that he was having analyzed. It was all already going on. So we've had geoengineering for about 20 years, at least the program that I pursue. They've been wanting to control the weather for many, many years, you can imagine. I mean, probably Napoleon ground his teeth over the weather too. But now they've really been able to do it because they have the technology, they've ionized the atmosphere, and I'll continue now. Oops, what was that? So here, again, the solar shield, they've renamed this thing so many times. We were doing SRM, solar radiation management, but now it's called solar shield. Aerosols to protect Earth from global warming. Patrick talked about it with geoengineer David Keith. So you can see different things, cloud seeding. It's really called ionization now. They don't call it cloud seeding anymore. Genetically engineered crops, that's our GMOs. greening of deserts. Well, so in some cases like Iran, they're making deserts. They're keeping the deserts by putting them in a drought condition with weather engineering. But they also have the ability now to green. You know, all of this technology could be used for good. You understand that, right? And then over here, iron fertilization. They're releasing iron into the oceans. Again, that has to do with the magnetite that Patrick mentioned. There's a certain objective to really embed us in our magnetosphere, in our magnetic Earth, the geomagnetism. Up here we have reflectors in orbit. That's really important. It isn't like there are big reflectors up there. It's that the sky itself now has a mirror capability because it's ionized. And that is being used in a variety of ways. So if you look up and see something you think is a UFO or an alien this or that, you might think again that perhaps you're looking at a plasma mirror representation. It could be holography, it could be many things. Signs and wonders are going on in our atmosphere because it's all a test tube now. There are a lot of experiments being run up there. Years ago there was, I didn't see it, but there was a TV show called Under the Dome. I think it was probably a pre-programming show to show us what was coming for us, that we are now actually living in a dome that used to be called a Tesla dome. And here we'll just look at a little bit of this to get an idea of that. This would be the military use of it. That's a plasma dome. It's made of plasma. It can be used for a variety of things. To protect, to enclose, to imprison. Radar installations that are active in order to activate the plasma in our environment. So here they're using missiles. I recommend that you think directed energy weapons instead of missiles. We're moving from the missile to the directed energy weapon age. And the plasma dome would not really, I don't believe it would deflect a missile, but it would deflect a directed energy weapon, like a particle beam, laser. Now this is is what is around us now. This just came out a few months ago, but we know it's been here longer.
Discovered a human-made barrier around Earth, protecting against natural particle radiation in space. They believe the bubble was formed by very low-frequency waves, or VLFs. VLFs have been found to interact with the particles in space, affecting how and where they move. VLFs are used for radio communications, including with submarines, because they can penetrate deep into the ocean. The waves can also travel far into the environment around Earth. By understanding more about how VLF transmissions help shape our space environment, we learn more about this complex region surrounding us. The more we know, the more situational awareness we have to protect our satellites from natural radiation in space.
So I need to footnote this. Yes, this has been formed around the Earth, and it has to do with the illustration on my book cover of the ring, the Saturn-like ring around the equator. But this has been formed purposefully so that we have all of this wireless radio frequency around us, ULF, ELF, whatever you want to call it, VLF. But it's like a Tesla dome in itself around our planet now. And that is being maintained partially by flying the jets every day that are laying the trails filled with the conductive metals that eventually, even though they're nanoparticles and have high loft signature, they will eventually filter down and they will get caught in the turning of the Earth and end up as that ring around the planet. This is to enclose our planet in a full spectrum dominance envelope, a Tesla dome. It is also to be used for communications when we send instruments out into the solar system. And maybe we already have things on the moon, I think we probably do. And so this is all about communication, but it's a communication that has to do with a militarized space age. So that's our condition, whether we like it or not. The Kennedy idea of the space age didn't happen. So this, I don't want to spend much time on this, but this is about, after Donald Trump's election, President Obama struck the word limited from the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, thus resurrecting the Star Wars program of 33 years ago. Now that was the Strategic Defense Initiative under Reagan, Bush, and Cheney. It eventually ended up being called the Ballistic Missile Defense Program under Clinton, but really it went black. It sort of disappeared from the public. I was alive then, so I know. And then it has now been resurrected since we were able to do all those fancy experiments with HAARP, that great acronym that we all have grown to love, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Kona, Alaska, phased array antennas, acres of them, zapping the ionosphere, activating all the ionic level there, and bringing that down through the magnetic lines of force to the Earth, so that we have turned our atmosphere into a mini ionosphere, basically. And that has to do with the full spectrum dominance. That has to do with command, control, communications, and cyber warfare. So, all right, so Obama, on his way out of office, reactivates the SDI program, known as Star Wars. The initiative cost taxpayers $30 billion, but no system was ever deployed before. Now that the atmosphere is ionized, it's in full bloom now, and we are seeing it around us to the degree they allow us to see it. On May 18, 2017, that would have been a few months later, after Trump was in office, NASA announced a massive human-made barrier. We just saw that. And then, on June 17, the following month, a Russian AMC-9 satellite in geostationary orbit.
It's in the middle.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Right here. The AMC-9, 36,000 kilometers above the Earth, lost contact with its operator and began drifting and breaking up. As it broke up, radar revealed 3 orb-like objects. They're right here. In triangular formation near the satellite, with another orb coming out. There it is. Media concentrated on the debris and not on the possibility that the satellite had been broken up because it had been attacked. 2 weeks after that, just 2 weeks, Trump relaunched the National Space Council that had guided NASA from 1958 to 1973, and again from 89 to 93. So something's going on up there above our atmosphere that we also don't know about. I'm not saying full-scale war. I'm not passing that rumor. I'm saying that there's a lot of action going on out there because the technology is way ahead of what we're being told. There he is relaunching the National Space Council with Buzz Aldrin by his side. Long ago, you remember this book, some of you? Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, in which he basically told us about the age we're now living in. He just died recently. I thought he'd never die, but he did, finally. And here we are. If we could see the wireless around us, we might get a little more serious about turning our routers off at night while we're sleeping and putting our head in north so that the magnetism of the Earth can help you instead of hinder you. This is what it would look like. I'm thinking of those babies that we let play with the iPhones so that they'll be quiet and not bug us. Climate Mafia, I won't go through all of them, we know them. There's the Weather Channel, bought by the Rothschilds or whomever, NASA, etc. Clifford was, as I said, back in the late 90s, was looking at the clouds above, and here is where he, at his site, carnicominstitute.org, you can find this quote of his where he says he becomes a really good observer of clouds. The material of the clouds is shown to have density, form, and behavior unbecoming of water vapor, and it has all the appearances of being at least in part of a synthetic nature. This material or form of cloud has been observed. It's a suspect because of the unusual textures observed. I want you all to become good observers of the clouds overhead. The patterns and textures referred to have frequently been described as blah, blah, blah. Okay. And to defend the term chemtrails, we got it from the U.S. Air Force Academy. They were the first ones to use it in 1990 on the cover of their Chemistry 131 manuals. It just shows the ingeniousness of the CIA to use the very term that belonged to the military as a conspiracy theory term. This is, oh, I don't need to play this, I'll do a little. The difference between a contrail and a chemtrail. I pretty much am telling people there are no contrails anymore, except for small planes maybe that can go that high. Certainly military fighters, 45,000 and up, they have the capability of doing contrails up there. But all the fuel now in commercial and military jets is classified, and it is all chemical. JP8, biofuel, doesn't matter. It's all chemical, but the important thing is it's classified. You cannot get the formula. So there's the teeny weeny little contrail up there. See it? There it is. And notice how it's dissipating within seconds. Right?
That's a barium sprayer. That's not a contrail.
That's a what? Say it again.
Barium sprayer. Their patent says, yeah, the patent for the barium sprayer says it has to be low altitude and it dissipates because it, like you said, you can't see 45,000 feet out. Those come out. Those are the EMF deflectors. Very good. Thank you very much. I had someone tell me that at a conference in LA too, but I didn't write down what he said. All right, so I have even worse news than that. Here's what we, before, during, and after, we know this well. This is the one that's really interesting to me.
An aircraft comprising a gas turbine engine that exhausts a plume of gases in use. The aircraft comprises an ultrasound generator having an ultrasound actuator and a waveguide to direct ultrasonic rays of the exhaust plume to avoid the formation of contrails.
So what we have is an invisible delivery system also, is what I'm saying. Okay. And then this one is interesting too. You may have seen this.
Yeah.
The orb is here. There's the orb. And see, people tend to think it's a UFO, but it isn't. It's easy for them to make plasma orbs now. And I think they're using it for navigation or guidance
Yeah.
of jets, along with a whole lot of other things. So it's important to keep up on the technology. Here's ship tracks. Yes, ships, Navy and merchant marine ships in the South Pacific, where we really get a lot of our weather that then is manipulated when it comes east toward the United States. The ship tracks are actually making water vapor using salt water, creating more to feed the storm systems, to feed the weather systems that the military and the chemtrails are working together with laser to make the wave forms that the laser can shoot up and move that weather away from California so that the drought continues, and move it up the coast, drop a little bit in Oregon, drop a little in Washington State, where I'm from, and then head it up to the jet stream, up the hump over Vancouver Island, attach it to the jet stream and move it south and east for weather situations in the Midwest, the South, and the Atlantic coast. So that's pretty much how it works, those weather systems. People ask me sometimes, can they create a natural weather system? No, they can't really. But they will take the natural weather systems and they will begin to manipulate them and engineer them, creating low pressure out of high pressure out of low pressure, etc., all with radio frequency and microwaves and chemicals. The chemicals are essential. Here's sounding rockets. This is something people don't think of. They think all the chemical trails and the problems we're having with, like Patrick was saying, the aluminum is from the chemical, the jets. No, it's also from the sounding rocket launches. Here in California, you have Edwards Air Force Base, where a lot of those launches are happening. You have private launch pads. I don't know where they are. I haven't really, this is not my area. This is that others in the movement follow. Wallops Air Force, Wallops on the East Coast, Kennedy, Canaveral, and then, Elon Musk type things and that. So this is really important, the sounding rockets, because they can use missiles too to do this. The missiles will spew all of this, and that would be aluminum, barium, strontium, titanium, lithium, all of those and more. Spew it all the way up. It'll go over population centers, and then they'll use usually NEXRADs or other radar installations to steer and move that spewing in various areas over population centers. This is all very conscious, is what I'm saying. This is not just that they have these great experiments, and it's, gee whiz, it's too bad that we're going to have to spew all this over population centers. They are actually targeted because they're running lots of experiments to see what happens to people. I mean, that's a big part of this. So then, up to the stratosphere goes the sounding rocket, and then it begins its descent after various experiments have been run up there, and they've got sensors that are reading everything and communicating them to big supercomputers on the Earth, or maybe by satellite. And now those will all again filter down with the centrifugal force, and they will end up in the ring around the equator, which is always one of the objectives, is to feed that ring and make it more solid. Another one, chemical trail.
What's the purpose of the ring?
Communications is what I maintain. And to just think about it, it's around above the Earth, and then down here we have that ULF thing that I was showing. That's also around the Earth. We're in a sort of Tesla dome, a sphere. We're inside a wireless sphere. And then we can be controlled more easily. And then also they want to communicate with various vessels they're going to be sending in the solar system. That's my theory. Because Saturn, the Saturn ring, what was that about? Well, Saturn is a very ancient planet, and my guess is that their ring too had to do with communications. would be my guess. So then you see these up in the air. Those are not, you know, they're not UFOs. They're actually trails. Lithium payloads. This is important, and those who heard me in California before, this is brand new because I've been thinking a lot about lithium lately. As you know, lithium is given to people who have bipolar disorder, right? It's a prominent.
This is Red Michelle Hopkins. Space.com reported that NASA launched 2 small rockets from Virginia's eastern shore on the 4th of July.
2013, this happened.
Here they are taking off from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility. Here's the facility on Google Earth, and I will leave the coordinates in the description. Here we have the 2 rocket launchers and the corresponding antenna. One of these rockets delivered a huge quantity of lithium into our atmosphere. In FEMA Region 3.
You know, we're in FEMA Region 10? Are you in California? No, we're in 9.
As they went up. This one did have lithium and deployed its payload, as you see here. All of these red dots are payload deployment. This is all lithium. Now NASA claims that the reason why they had a joint project with Japan was that they were showing Japan how lithium is used in the atmosphere to aid in the use of frequency for communications and military purposes. That lithium deployment was directed northeastward, and you may be able to see some of the undulations here. Then it was turned westward and then directed in a southerly direction. And as you can see, NEXRADs and satellites are spiking the entire area of FEMA Region 3, from Maine all the way down to North Carolina. Lithium is a soft, silver-white metal, the lightest metal and the least dense solid element. Like all alkali metals, lithium is highly reactive and flammable. Lithium exhibits a metallic luster because of its high reactivity and is therefore highly reactive to electromagnetism that can be created by frequency. In fact, the nuclei of lithium is prized for its instability. Lithium never occurs freely in nature. Instead, it only appears in compounds which are ionic. Lithium-6 deuteride serves as a fusion fuel in staged thermonuclear weapons. Lithium and its compounds have several industrial applications, including heat-resistant glass, ceramics, and lithium batteries. Let's see if this doesn't sound familiar to you. Contact with moist air corrodes the lithium surface quickly to a dull silvery gray, then black tarnish. And because of this, it is useful only for a short time as a conductive metal that falls upon the population below in the form of a mind-altering compound called lithium carbonate. And lithium is constantly being used to fortify artificially conductive skies. That is why, when used in chemtrails, lithium's use is very temporary, resulting in a dingy, gray, worthless chemdross. Lithium carbonate is commonly used as a mood-stabilizing drug in the treatment of bipolar disorder. And here's where it gets interesting. Here's how it affects you and me. Lithium carbonate is commonly used as a mood-stabilizing drug in the treatment of bipolar disorder, particularly of mania in depression. Those subjected to lithium, some side effects include an overall dazed feeling, a fine tremor in the hands and body, nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, nausea and headache, unbalanced electrolytes. Hypothyroidism is 6 times greater with the introduction of lithium, which in turn increases the likelihood of developing clinical depression. Lithium is...
Let's stop there. It's
Is this all in your book?
Yes, I referred to it because Oregon was used in some sort of lithium experiment along the coastal towns. And I know that because of Anne Fillmore wrote a wonderful essay that was published in Europe about it. And she had received information from a whistleblower working in the weather department of Oregon State. And he made it very clear that it was to alter moods and it was experimental. So in city centers, I think that this is probably going on. Though lithium is much more expensive to run than aluminum, much more. So, and as you heard, lithium loses its conductivity relatively quickly in these rocket launches at altitude. So what is the real purpose, given that they're directing it over population centers? Lithium sunset. And then here are the 6, they were 7 before, I keep tweaking them. The 6 military intelligence operations dependent upon ionizing our atmosphere. Obviously, I'm not going to go into many today. Weather engineering, chemical, electromagnetic, atmospheric operations, planetary geophysical, directed energy weapon, surveillance and neural operations, and biological and transhumanism operations. So yes, I definitely try to cover all those. Now I'm obviously going to, in this next book, really go heavy on the last operation. This was the space fence years ago. You see that little line across the United States right there? That's it. That was all there was. Now it's way different. Let's skip that. There's HARP. For those newcomers here who don't know what the phased array looks like, HARP is being reactivated now. It was dormant for a few years while it was being taken over by University of Alaska Fairbanks, but I now know it is fully operational again. Not particularly good news. This is how it works. You zap, you send it up. It activates all up in the ionosphere, ions. They come down, we use them down here. Here, I just wanted to point out this part right here. This is what I always say, people don't believe me. High frequency heating of the ionosphere changes the lower ionospheric conductivity, which in the presence of natural currents such as the auroral electrojet creates an antenna in the sky when heating is modulated at ELF, DLF frequencies. And remember, we just saw that we have this big VLF envelope around the Earth. This is why. It's the ionosphere heaters. And here is where we hear the Air Force itself tell us.
Chairman, thank you to all of you this morning. Very interesting. I wanted to ask a couple questions here about HARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Several of you at the table have a little bit of a piece here. As you know, this is located up in Alaska. It's currently funded by the Air Force Research Lab. It was formerly funded by the Office of Naval Research. One of the prime customers is DARPA, which is currently running experiments at the facilities there. So questions to several of you this morning. I'm told by the president of the University of Alaska that the Air Force has pulled its support for the facility and they're taking steps to demolish it or take it down this summer. He's making the argument that there is other opportunities for us and is trying to find a path where the university might be able to take title to the facility. I'd like to start with you, Dr. Prabhakar. I understand that a lot of folks here on the committee probably don't understand what HARP does. I think most Alaskans don't really know what HARP does or why the agency is involved in it. So a very brief explanation and then a more direct question. Would you be disappointed or would you lose something if HARP were to go away?
Senator Murkowski, as I think you know, one of our programs has been using the HARP facility for the research that it's pursuing. And my understanding is that we did get value out of that interaction. The P in DARPA is projects, and we're not in the business of doing the same thing forever. So very naturally, as we conclude that work, we're going to move on to other topics. So it's not an ongoing need for DARPA, despite the fact that we had actually gotten some good value out of that infrastructure in the past.
Understood. Then to Dr. Walker and Mr. Schaefer then, Dr. Walker, your agency is currently running the facility. I mentioned that it's our understanding through the president of UAF that the plans are to move forward and demolish the facility this summer. So the question to you is that accurate? Can you explain why? And then perhaps to both you and Mr. Schaefer, is there any benefit in exploring a potential relationship with the University of Alaska to perhaps take over?
Thank you, Senator. The Air Force has gotten great value out of HARP in the past. We took it over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there and have finished our work that we were interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere, be able to actually control it. And
there it is. Yeah. So I just want to be clear that HARP, that one installation is only one of hundreds. We now have ionosphere heaters that are smaller, more mobile. They're simply part of the global warming story of our atmosphere. And what has infuriated me is that this is constantly left out of any of the discussion at the climate control conferences. It is never mentioned at all in context of climate change or global warming, and it needs to be part of the dialogue. So then I know we want a Q&A, and I have so much more, of course. But I want to show you Lockheed Martin's vision of the space fence. And I want you to keep in mind that Lockheed Martin it's in charge of the space fence. Just as Raytheon has been in charge of HARP and all the patents, Raytheon owns all the patents for HARP. Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, if they don't run America, I'll eat my hat. Here is, they're thinking about how the space fence is about counting debris in space, which it is, but it is just as much about surveillance on Earth, okay, looking down. So keep that in mind when you're seeing what Lockheed Martin has to say. I always like they have cool videos for teenage mentality.
Space is no longer a vast, empty void. Unprecedented quantities of new satellites, derelict satellites, and debris litter the skies, posing an imminent threat to America's space assets. Lockheed Martin's Space Fence System is a ground-based system of S-band radars designed to greatly enhance the Air Force space surveillance network. It provides unprecedented sensitivity, coverage, and tracking accuracy, and contributes to key mission threads with the ability to detect, track, and catalog small objects in low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, and geosynchronous orbit. In a word, Space Fence will revolutionize space situational awareness. It offers assured surveillance coverage for improved custody, and features the capability to develop long arc tracks for accurate initial orbit determination and differential correction, while simultaneously maintaining a persistent surveillance volume. In today's ever-expanding space environment, Space Fence improves the accuracy and timeliness for association, propagation, and orbit improvement. It features an open architecture net-centric design. The closely coupled radar signal processing and mission processing suite improves accuracy, discrimination, and timeliness for detection of closely spaced objects, breakups, maneuvers, lost object location, launch, attitude change, and conjunction assessment. Space Fence not only tracks objects, but can precisely determine their projected orbit. This allows operators to reconstruct recent events, such as collisions or satellite breakups, and accurately predict future events. For high-interest objects, a microfence can be electronically constructed to gather more track data, focusing radar resources specifically on that object, providing more timely and accurate information. The Space Fence system includes up to 2 minimally manned radar sites, mission processing, and the system operations functionality. Each radar site features a design boasting closely spaced but separate transmit and receive arrays that are mission optimized for high availability and low lifetime support costs.
That part is a lie. They make it sound like it only has 2 places that are running the operation. No. Everything is calibrated to work together with the Space Fence operation at those 2 junctures, like at Kwajalein Island and the other ones on the East Coast. Here's an example of another one is ISCAT 3D is building huge phased arrays, just like China is. China is building massive phased array antennas. I mean, this is just beginning what's going on now. And all of these will have to be coordinated by the Space Fence artificial intelligence. That gives you a picture. I mean, we're talking acres, phased array antennas. So if I were to say, how will the transhumanist singularity do it? I would have to say they're going to do it externally, through the heavy metal conductors in our bodies that we breathe in on a nanoscale, along with the sensors we breathed in, along with the microprocessors we breathed in. All of those will have to do with the 5G coming. 5G is going to be the linchpin by which all of this debris inside of us represents a connectivity for the Space Fence lockdown on the human nervous system, along with everything else. And so what can I say as a ray of hope for that? Well, start detoxing. Get into a detox regime. Start researching it. You can go to naturopaths. I wouldn't recommend doctors. They don't know about this. or the ones some do, you know, they've been compromised, would be my guess. So this is kind of, I want to have time for Q&A. I'm not going to be able to go through everything else, but it's all ramping up. It's all happening now. And the advent of 5G, which seems like a very tiny thing, but the problem is it has millimeter waves. Now, this is brand new for us. Other than TSA, where they're using millimeter waves when you're being when you don't get the pat down and you're entering, you know, for your flight. The millimeter wave, it makes this a nervous system thing. So, and a genetic thing. So that's why I now know that the space fence is fully operational, is the 5G is being rolled out. So now it becomes a matter of an imperative in my mind that, you know, I'm not the only source. I'm the only one writing books on this right now, which I can't believe. I can't believe I'm the only one. And I can only hope that people more qualified than I will be coming out with some materials. But, you know, find a source, find your sources, learn what you can. You're not going to obviously spend as much time on this as I do. But mainly it's the nanotechnology, that's chapter 3 in the book. You have got to understand the nanotechnology revolution is basically the keys to the kingdom over just about everything on planet Earth. And I say some shocking things about nanotech that I have found in nanomaterials, PhDs, essays and papers and patents. Mainly that nanotechnology is, they don't really know how it works. It's much like artificial intelligence. They're not really sure how it works. But it is in everything. It's in our foods, it's in our clothing, it's in our vaccinations, it's in everything. And we are breathing it in, so we need to come to terms with it. Every era has a challenge. If we'd lived in the 1400s, in the 1300s, the 1200s, the 1100s, would have been the Vatican, would have been the Catholic Church and the Inquisition. Every era has its challenge. And you know, I'm up for it. As I said, this is my watch, right? This is your watch. None of us are here by accident.
Can you tell us a little bit about Rosalind Peterson's passing? I got this email from a woman I've never heard of before saying that, you know, Rosalind was basically gone, but she didn't.
Yeah, Rosalind died of cancer, and there were no obituaries. I too searched for obituaries, couldn't find. But Alan Buckman was a close friend of hers, and I did talk to Alan. He's a biologist, and yes, she had had cancer for quite some time, and finally passed.
Oh, you know, I was just thinking it would be really nice for us at some point in the community to do a memorial for her.
I know it's strange to me that we have people passing and the movement goes on. Yeah. We're just like troops on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. There was a site at my site for Rosalind, and some people did write in, but it is pretty. Having a movement based on the internet is a strange experience, right? There are no bodies, really. There's sort of disembodied people on the phone and on, you know, on emails, and it's just how it is. It's one of the limitations of our movement. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that Rosalind Peterson's best friend, Shoshana Allison, did do it online memorial for her.
That's right.
I can get you the link for that.
And there is, yes, there is. Yeah, there is a memorial.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk more about what you mean by transhumanism.
Transhumanism is, what comes to mind is the Singularity University, which is right next door to Google and right next door to Facebook in Silicon Valley. And Singularity University under Ray Kurzweil, he has written several books on the idea that we are approaching a time when we will be post-human, when we will be living in a virtual world, and virtual reality will mean much more to us than the so-called real reality of nature and natural things. And this has it's been talked about in futurist contexts in the perimeter of the news and knowledge, but they've done a lot of homework on this. And it is my opinion, now that I'm this deep into this study, that this nanotech that we are now inhaling and is going into our lungs, and as Patrick said, is going beyond the blood-brain barrier into our brains, this is going to be how they do it. And it's going to have to do with changing our genetics. Some people are espousing the idea of a third strand will be developed. But the important part to hear is that with nanobots in our bodies, all of this can be done remotely.
All of what?
All of the genetic engineering can be done remotely. Just as people, I don't know if there are targeted individuals in here today, but I certainly am in touch with a lot of targeted individuals who are being targeted by directed energy weapons from a distance. And things can be done to them, their mind, their bodies, that are extraordinary. They don't need to bring you in for an EEG anymore in order to find out what your brain signature is or your emotional signatures are. They don't need an MRI, an fMRI in order to do that. Everything can be done remotely, and that to me is what the full spectrum dominance of the ionized atmosphere means. Billions and billions of wireless operations, billions and billions 24/7 will be going on in order to achieve this advent of a very different humanity. And I have not come to this conclusion easily, and I am not swayed by science fiction. This is already happening. I see now how they have been able to achieve this, and how long it has taken people to wake up. Which I can understand that. We're besieged by all sorts of things today. Yeah.
What you're speaking of is that, like mind control, MK Ultra, and Stephen Hawkins, Bill Gates, and the partner of the Apple guy, Okay, so they came together and they wanted to create an army of MK Ultra soldiers, and that program still continues even though Hawkins has passed. But they wanted to create ultra men who would just do whatever without thinking.
Well, I think those are here.
I'd just like to say to that point that the Super Soldier Institute at MIT has been doing that for a long time. It's one of the main places where this brain-machine interface technology has been developed, which is a big part of the transhumanist goal.
Yes, huge part.
The mind control, the chips that they originally did the experiments with the bull, like they put a chip in his brain and were able to control remotely, but now they have these headsets that they're selling that people are buying into, where they can read your thoughts and you wear it.
Well, you don't even need a headset.
No, yeah.
You don't even need a
That's
headset.
open version of
But yeah, they're going to make a commercial enterprise of it, because what I didn't cover is that disaster capitalism is alive and well. They're going to make money off of our destruction.
I wanted to talk about the Operation Urban Shield. I don't think many people know what that is.
Go ahead.
And Operation Urban Shield is where our police forces are becoming militarized. They're being given every kind of armament you can imagine. And there are very few communities that are fighting against this. Now, I don't know if you have that up in Washington, but lately, Berkeley has decided that Urban Shield is okay. So they're going to host. They're going to start hosting the maneuvers. So it's really important that people just Google that Urban Shield. And KPFA has one programmer on Fridays who's really been tackling this issue. She's amazing. You might just want to look at Friday morning, the morning show. It's the only good morning show that we have left, and she's really awesome.
Well, it's working in tandem with the Agenda 2030.
Yeah.
And it's a vision of the future. It seems to be very Orwellian, needless to say, because the idea, very core, is to replace nature so that man will be as God on the earth and will be able to create a life and everything for us. You know, why aren't they upset about the forest dying from the aluminum? Oh, easy, because they're going to have GMO for us. Why aren't they upset about the food that is being destroyed by the aluminum, because the soil is being destroyed by the aluminum, because they're going to have GMO food? So you get my picture here. This is rampant, and in some ways, you know, I've been watching the present administration, who's only in there for at the most 8 years, and that's nothing. No, I don't think we've been run by a president for many, many years since Kennedy was assassinated. I think that was the message, was don't try to run things. We've got things to handle. We've got our own ideas. So I've been watching this president to see what will happen, because I don't feel that he, you know, understands what he's walked into, like most presidents don't, though some have very much understood what they walked into. So, can we wait for someone to save us, is what I'm saying? No, that's not going to happen. So the advantage to me is that has this sped up my development? Oh, I think it has. I think I'm like a speeding bullet train now, and I am so desirous of understanding more and more and more, so that my consciousness becomes more encompassing and stronger. And this is the advantage to living in an era like this, is that we must be more than what in America we've been led to believe. We've had it so easy, so many of us in America, for so long, and that's over. That is over, and it's time to really pick up the pieces around us and start asking, what is human culture? What is the advantage? I mean, if you're one of the people who may say humanity and the earth would be better off without them, I am not in your quarter. I feel that the earth and the humans we're like this. And I love the earth and the earth loves me. So now we will fight. We will fight. You know, if we woke up late, so what? We woke up. And so we will learn what we can and do what we can on a local level. On a local level.
Yeah, so as I said before, I do a lot of habitat management plans, and we've all heard the story of the canary in the coal mine as being a sign of things really getting seriously wrong if the canary dies. Right now, a lot of people are not aware of the hugely fast disappearance of local species. Of course, our trees. The California blackbird, which used to be the most common bird in California, has dropped 65% in 6 years. I've been working in the environmental field for 40 years. I've never seen declines like this. The good news is there are things you can do in your own backyard. In your own body, you can detox. The way you can help your trees. The aluminum inhibits the ability for them to get nutrients from the soil, the nitrogen and phosphorus. So there's ways that you can actually nurture your trees and so forth. So there are things that you can do for your body, for the animals. But just highlighting, we are on a much faster acceleration of environmental decline than ever before.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you. Yep.
Have you come across, and maybe I originally read something in your book about the effect with the sun. I've just been reading somewhere about the technology that we're in harmonic resonance the planet and the sun, and that they have been experimenting with making effects on the sun.
Yes, they have been experimenting, because that's why did I read that quote from Tesla about the sun? No, about the sun, where his idea was to harness the energy of the sun. And so we already know that for solar panels, right? And they have a lot of solar panels up on the ISS and different places in space. But the sun is plasma, and plasma is the primary driving force now for all atmospheric testing that's going on. And I'm studying plasma. Really, it's fascinating, because 99.999% of the Earth, of the universe is plasma. And I don't mean the plasma in your blood. This plasma of the plasma physics movement formed in the 1930s was named after that plasma, because plasma means forming. And so that's what the plasma experiments are all about. When you see balls of light up there, like the plasma orbs, when you see various, people have seen spirals up there. This is all playing around in what I call plasma sculpting by what I call the laptop boys. They are all experimenting with plasma. And the sun being all plasma, in a plasma form, you know they are going to want to harness that energy, which is why I don't get excited, particularly when I hear about solar flares, CMEs. All of this is being manipulated, and I'm not sure what is true and what isn't until I dig in, roll my sleeves up, and get into that. But right now, I'm pursuing the synthetic biology.
Yes. So for me, it's been about 8 years since I found this, and it's so nice to be able to be around a group of people who you can actually say that we actually have sensors living in us and nanotechnology. I mean, to say something like that to somebody is, they'll think you're crazy, but I watched Clifford Carnicom. That's how I came to this conclusion that there's something that we're breathing and that there's a purpose for it. And then I watched as Gwen Scott and Clifford Carnicom revealed that an alkaline blood actually will put these things in stasis.
Yes.
Which is our key as human beings to eat what God originally gave us, which is alkaline foods. Yep. And it's very hard because we're all addicted to carbohydrates and processed foods, that if we want to put these things in stasis, we have to have an alkaline blood.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. That's another one. Besides the heavy metal detox, there's the alkaline acid food of your lifestyle, and to begin to see what it alkalinizes, because the Morgellons, for one thing, the cross-domain bacteria, it grows like crazy in an acid environment and goes into stasis in an alkaline environment, as Clifford proved. So that's another one. Consciousness. If you allow fear to take over, then you will be producing acidity in your body. All of this has to do with coming to a lifestyle that is supportive of a future that is very different from the singularity and diversity.
You said that all of this could be used for good instead of bad.
Not all.
How? Okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, right. Thanks for correcting me. Not all of it. And for what he asked, what could be used for good? Well, for example, the ionospheric heaters could put an end to, could control hurricanes, could control tornadoes, could control earthquakes. Ionospheric heaters could easily do that because they're scalar technology. And scalar technology could be healing for us, like the work of Royal Rife. Royal Rife was able to kill cancer cells by a ray of electromagnetic light if he knew the frequency of the cancer cell. So all of these, the lasers, they could all be, but that's the problem, isn't it? That you get hold of the technology and everything is weaponized. Even food, even the genetically modified food has been weaponized. And this is in the sense that, do you remember when what's the name of Monsanto came out with the aluminum resistant seed? Yes, and the Terminator seed, as we call it, where people now need to have to buy the seed. They can't just replenish their own seed. The seed will completely deteriorate. So yes, everything is weaponized. This is part of the problem with yes, capitalism, but it's a certain type of capitalism, not capitalism per se, in my opinion. And the National Security Act of 1947, this is a big problem of that act. It is not our friend. The formation of the CIA was not a good idea. So there are many things that happen in large-scale, capital-intensive capitalism that seem to see that acquiring money at any cost is good enough. So some moral aspect of the West has deteriorated, and perhaps it's because we're materialists. We don't spend a lot of time on spiritual things. We think nature is here as our resource bank, rather than to keep replenishing the great power of natura. So there are a lot of things we've missed. That now either we're heading toward a disaster and we will have to start over again, which I'm very much a catastrophist, if that's the word, I don't know, where we've started over many times here on the earth. But you know, I would rather do it another way than that. But who knows? But I know that what I need to do is give it everything I've got, and that will have to do from my little vantage point. Yeah. Yes?
We have 5 minutes, and this has been very enlightening. Before we leave, is it at all possible that we could hear your website and your information, your local, and your information also?
We can also keep doing Q&A, and then if they come and take the room, we can sell books outside if anyone hasn't picked up a book, and there's like some nice sections out there.
Right, and if you want to buy a book, the one is 25 and the other is 20, and I'll sign them, and we can continue the Q&A. I know you probably have a lot of questions. So for me, it's a matter of, on Facebook, I have a closed site. You can ask to be a member of it. I'll go to your site, to your Facebook site, and see if I think you're a good match. And then I'll decide. And then I also have a site that we're still working on, but you know, that's always the way it is, called ElanaFreeland.com. ElanaFreeland.com. It's just all lowercase, and there's also a Proton Mail thing there. If you want to email me, you can through that site. Patrick?
Oh, wait, so keep going. Yeah, so my website is stopsprayingus.com, and I have gifts for you. I have show and tell. I've got nice shiny buttons that you can... Yeah, that's better. Awesome. Really pretty, so yeah, everyone gets a button. Actually, take one, pass it on. So yeah, I'm on stopsprayingus.com, Patrick, R-O-D-D-I-E. You'll find me on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. We can't rely on these systems. We need to, archive.org is a good place. Try other ways, because we are asking the other side's permission to go against their will on their systems. We need to do stuff ourselves. You speak to people in the street. You cannot be censored, and no, like it's like there's a website on the button, you know. Do that. And the thing is, like you've all been trained to do what you're able to do right now. I know pretty specifically what I'm doing, But you also have a purpose, all of you. And once you figure that out, it's freaking awesome. And when you do it, you'll have all kinds of help. And but I want to thank. I'm so grateful for Ariel and Michael and everybody, and for people showing up. Like, bravo! This is the biggest turnout. Like, I did a thing last year, and I think maybe 12 people showed. It was still great to do because this is all going to go on Facebook with all the links and all that good stuff. But you're already on the right path. And just the decision to do the right thing screws up the other stuff on the other side, and every good thing that you do screws their stuff up. And just by doing what you're already doing, we win. So just keep it up, and it ain't bad. It certainly isn't over, because if you decide it's over and you want to tap out or take a rest, you can take a rest. But you know, that stuff and all the other stuff, nah. So say no as well. We can all do that. Yeah, together we win.
Thank you.